Hare Krishna.
This meeting is being recorded.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 12, Devotional Service.
No.
Text. Arjuna Vacha. Text 1. Arjuna Vacha. Evam Satata Yukta Ye Bhaktastvam Paryupasate Ye Chapi Aksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vitama.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahma, the unmanifested?
Text 2. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Maya Vishya Manuye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Teme Yukta Tamamata.
The Supreme Personality of God had said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect.
Text 3 to 4. Yetvaksharamanidesham avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam ye kutastham achalam dhruvam saniyam yendriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhaya te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rata.
But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me.
Text 5. Kleshodika taraste sam avyakta saktati chetasam avyakta hi gate dukham tehavadve avapyate.
For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied.
Text 67. Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matpara ananyeneva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate te samaham samadharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya vesheta chetasam.
But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Partha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
Text 8. Mayeva manadhatsva may buddhim niveshaya nivasishyahi mayeva ata urdhvam na samshaya.
Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt.
Text 9. Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknosi mai sthiram Abhyasa tato mamichaptam dayajaya.
My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me.
Text 10. Abhyasebhya samarthosi matkarma paramo bhava mad arthamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapshasi.
If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage.
Text 11. Athe tadapi yasaktosi karto madyogamashrita sarvakarma phalatyagam tatha kuru yatatmavan.
If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self situated.
Text 12. Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasad jnanadhyayan vishishyate dhyanat karma phalastyagas tyagach chantiranantaram.
If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by which renunciation one can attain peace of mind.
Text 13 to 14. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukha kshami santusta satatam yogi yatatma dhita nishchaya mayarpita mano buddhir yomad bhakta same priya.
One who is not envious One who is not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self control, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me.
Text 15. Yasman nodvijate loko, lokan nodvijate chaya, harshamarsa bhayadvegya, mukto yasa cha me priya.
He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me.
Text 16. Anapeksha shuche daksha, uddasino gata vyatha, sarvarambha parityagi, yomad bhakta same priya.
My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and for striving for some result, is very dear to me.
Text 17. Yo na rishati na tvesti, no shachoti na kankshati, shubha shubha parityagi, bhakti manya same priya.
One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me.
Text 18 and 19. Sama shatrascha mitre cha, tatha mana pamanayo, sitoshna sukha dukkeshu, sama sangha vivarjita. तुल्यनिन्दास्तु मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतास्थिरामतिर्भक्तिमान् ये मे प्रियो नरः.
One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who does not care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me.
Text 20. Ye tu dharmamritamidam yatoktam parupasate sadadhana matparama bhaktaste tiva me priya.
Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jyoti Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, you're the host now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the recitation. It was nice. And then 12th chapter is the Bhakti Yoga. When we read all the verses, we can easily correlate to many verses from all the different important verses in from 1st to 18th chapter. So very amazing. It's a different type of what do you call? If someone wants to just join the dots of Bhakti Yoga, how it is related to Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and how Prabhupada is bringing Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Sarartha Varshini Tika and Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan's Gita Bhushanam, those two commentaries, he brings it together, and how he joins all the verses in terms of his purports. It's beautiful. It's amazing. So let's discuss the 3rd and 4th verse today from the 12th chapter. Okay, let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirhe. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhaktina ishtaki. So let's chant the verse. Ye tvaksharam nirdesham avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam sanniyamedriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhyaha ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रतः ये त्वक्षरं निर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यं च कूटस्थम् अचलं ध्रुवं सन्नियम्येद्रियग्रामं सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रतः ये त्वक्षरं निर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यं च कूटस्थम् अचलं ध्रुवं सन्नियम्येद्रियग्रामं सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रतः. Sorry, I have got a really bad cold and cough. So Nasika, which is Nama, all the specific letters, I'm not able to pronounce properly. So I apologize for that. Ye, those who, tu, but, aksharam, that which is beyond the perception of senses, anin, anirdesham, indefinite, avyaktam, unmanifested, paryupasate, completely engage in worshipping, sarvatragama, all pervading, achintyam, inconceivable, cha, also, kutastham, unchanging, achalam, immovable, dhruvam, fixed, sanyamya, controlling, indriyagramam, all the senses, sarvatra, everywhere, samabuddhayaha, equally disposed, te, they, prapnuvanti, achieve, mam, may, eva, certainly, sarvabhutahite, for the welfare of all living entities, rataha, engaged. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of all the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. Purport. Those who do not directly worship the Supreme Godhead, Krishna, but who attempt to achieve the same goal by an indirect process, also ultimately achieve the same goal, Sri Krishna. After many births, the man of wisdom seeks refuge in me, knowing that Vasudev is all. When a person comes to full knowledge after many births, he surrenders unto Lord Krishna. If one approaches the Godhead by the method mentioned in this verse, he has no control. He has to control the senses, render service to everyone, and engage in the welfare of all beings. It is inferred that one has to approach Lord Krishna, otherwise there is no perfect realization. Often there is much penance involved before one fully surrenders unto him. In order to perceive the supersoul within the individual soul, one has to cease the sensual activities of seeing, hearing, tasting, working, etc. Then one comes to understand that the supersoul is present everywhere. Realizing this, one envies no living entity. He sees no difference between man and animal because he sees soul only, not the outer covering. But for the common man, this method of impersonal realization is very difficult. Great, Prabhupada ki jai. Let's chant the invocation and then we will discuss. I don't have a hard copy of our family business, so we will continue our discussion on the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Today is Gita Jayanti as well as Mokshada Ekadashi. So we will discuss that and then how to distribute this knowledge, the supreme ultimate knowledge of Upanishad, which is the theme of book distribution. That also we will discuss today. So that's what our outline of our today's program is, today's discussion is. Let's chant the invocation and then we will start. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanmitam Tvam Sachivam Sadvaitam Saavadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanmitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatahubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम राम हरे हरे जानुलंबितभुजौ कनकावधातौ संकीर्तनैकपितरौ कमलायताक्षौ विश्वम्भरो द्विजभरो युगधर्मपालो वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरौ करुणावतारौ यन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचं मां प्रसूप्तां सञ्जीवयत्य अखिलशक्तिधरस्वदम् अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणा श्रवणात्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं मुखं करोति वाचालं भङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं परमानन्दमाधवम्. Very interesting verse we have for discussion today, and there is a lot about this particular verse in the world that people have different interpretations, but because of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have got an absolute clarity of what we are supposed to follow and what formula we should follow throughout our life. So let's chant the words again. Ye toksharam nirdesham avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam sanniyamedriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite ratah. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So the interesting part of this verse is, if the person wants to think in a very complicated manner, that we have few people in the world, they want to be the best musicians. The same person wants to be the top class academician, some really exceptionally good physicist or mathematician or something similar. The same person wants to be a very good artist, and that person wants to do too many things. Lot of times, either that person wants those qualities to gratify the senses, or sometimes to become famous so that people will admire and that person will gain some followership and that kind of. But this whole idea of I want to gain too much it's nothing but if we look at the subtle level, where it is coming from, this is nothing but an envy, because only one person can have all the qualities, all the opulences, and that is the Supreme Lord. So here in this particular verse, those who fully worship unmanifested, so that means the person does not want to accept that God is a supreme personality of Godhead, Adi Purusha, that which lies beyond the perception of senses. Yeah. So the person wants to have that own concoction, the impersonalist we are talking about here, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable. So that means the person who, if the conception of the Lord is not a supreme personality of Godhead, and then that means those people will think that the nature, the Vishwarupa, which is temporary manifestation of the Lord, which is there in the previous chapter. The name of the chapter itself is Vishwarupa Darshan Yoga. Sanskrit name of the 11th chapter is Vishwarup Darshan Yoga. And the 10th chapter is Vibhuti Yoga, opulences of the Lord. So Lord shows his Vibhuti, his opulences, in 11th chapter, but only in terms of the Vishwarup Darshan, the universal form of the Lord, which is temporary. And Arjun doesn't want to see that. He's not happy to see the universal form of the Lord because it's very ghastly and it has something inconceivable. There is no relationship Arjun can develop. And finally, Arjun says, no, I would like to see you as a person. That itself, the 11th chapter, the end part of the Lord, end part of that chapter, is seeing the Lord in person. And that's the conclusion of the 11th chapter. And then comes Bhakti Yoga. The Bhagavad Gita is telling us that, yes, 7th chapter is the knowledge of the absolute Jnana Vijnana Yoga, the realized knowledge. Lord talks about what he is. He starts establishing the principle that Supreme Lord is an eternal person, and that starts in 7th chapter. 6th chapter, what we have seen, what's the last verse of 6th chapter? Anyone can decide the verse? योगिनाम अपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान भजते यो माम समयुक्ततमो मतः. What Lord says there is, all the first 6 chapters there is karma yoga and different type of hatha yoga, and he talks about controlling the mind and the senses and a lot of things, and then that's basically the structure of the yoga. Yoga, the literal meaning of yoga in Sanskrit is connection, it's addition. And addition means yoga and subtraction means viyog. So, and yogi means the person who wants to connect himself to something. So you can't connect yourself to Vishwarup. There is no relationship in something unchanging, fixed, immovable, inconceivable, all pervading. And that's why at the end of the 11th chapter, Lord is establishing the principle of the personality, Vishwarupa Darshan Yoga. But at the end, he says that Vishwarup, everything resides within me. Yeah, and as later on, when we will continue our discussions about Srimad Bhagavatam, there are different manifestations of the Lord in terms of the Shishumara Chakra and different types of chakras. It comes in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lord has a different manifestations, and I think we all have studied very diligently the first the incarnations of the Lord, or the manifest, or the expansions of the Lord, as a boar, as a Varahadev, as a Kurmadev, and many more innumerable incarnations Lord has. But the final principle what Bhagavad Gita is establishing here is Lord is a supreme person, and that's the last part of the 11th chapter. And then when there is an establishment that there is a supreme person who has all the opulences, who is always who is all pervading, but at the same time he is active. There is a relationship between us, between the Jivatma and the Paramatma and the Supreme Lord. And that's where the beginning of the 12th chapter is. And this particular verse here, Lord is saying, those who worship unmanifested. That means people want to worship the opulences of the Lord. Yeah. In terms of, oh, this belongs to me, this belongs to me. This is something which I'm impressed about. And that's what people want to worship, because they can connect themselves in terms of the gross or subtle sense gratification. And that's where the relationship the person wants to develop. But that relationship is not an eternal relationship. The relationship has to be with the exchanges. You can't have exchanges with something inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable. In the 12th canto, 13th chapter, first verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Suta Goswami offers a very beautiful prayer. It's a very poetic, very wonderful recitation, and I'm sure most of you know that prayer. The prayer is like this. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutas Tunvanti Divyaistavai Vedet Sangha Padakramo Upanishade Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam Navidu Sura Asuragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Very, very beautiful, very poetic prayer. What this prayer means, and then we can connect back to this particular today's verse with the discussion. What Sutta Goswami is saying here is, who I worship the personality. He's basically offering his obeisances to the personality, to whom, and the first word and the first line is Yam Brahma Varunendra. Brahma, Varuna, Rudra is Lord Shiva, Rudra, Maruta, all the demigods, they worship this person, one person. Yam Brahma, Varunendra, Rudra, Marutas, Stunvanti Divyaistavir. And they have that tremendous reverence. They are worshipping, they are praising, which is beyond somebody's logic. Divya means which is beyond logic. Stunvanti Divyaistavir. And they are just continuously worshipping, they are praising. They have that exchange, that loving relationship with that person, with the Supreme Lord. Vedet Sangapada Kramo Upanishade Gayanti Yam Samagaha. All the Vedic literature, Vedet Sangapada Kramo Upanishade. Every single verse and the crush jewels of Vedic literature, which is Upanishad, whether you take Brihadaranyaka Upanishad or Taittiriya Upanishad or Shvetashvatara Upanishad or Kathopanishad or many more, every single Upanishad, our main focus in our Sampradaya is Ishopanishad. So every single Upanishad, if we focus on, that again comes to the same conclusion. Vedet Sangapada Kramo Upanishade Gayanti Yam Samagaha. So personification of Upanishad, what that means is, Upanishad is also coming from the Lord, either directly or indirectly. So obviously it is all given by the Lord, and Srila Vyasadeva has given to the entire humanity. So those Upanishad, when it is recited, those are basically every single Upanishad, every single verse of the Upanishad is also describing and establishing the relationship with again single one person. Vedet Sangapada Krama Upanishade Gayantiyam Samagaha. Very beautifully those Upanishads are singing. And if we can see in Bhagavad Gita, there are different intonations and different meters. It is in Sanskrit, it's called Chanda. So you can sing Bhagavad Gita in many different ways. Third line of that verse prayer is Dhyana avasthita tat gatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino. So dhyana avastha, dhyana means meditation. So dhyana avasthita tat gatena manasa. In their mind, when somebody is meditating on to get to achieve some goal of higher realization of transcendental objectives, dhyana avasthita tat gatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino. But at the background, they are meditating on again that one person, whether knowingly sometimes or unknowingly. But every single yogi, dhyana avastha, they are meditating again on that one person. So 3 lines we talked about, Brahma, Varuna, Rudra, Maruta, they are meditating on one person. Vedic knowledge, every single verse, Upanishad, that is also singing about that one person. Dhyana gatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino. The yogino, that again comes yogi. So every yogi is also meditating on that one person, either knowingly, unknowingly, directly or indirectly. Yeah. So third line. Fourth verse, the fourth line of this particular verse of the prayer is Yasyantam navidu sura asuragana devaya tasmai namaha. So Deva means God. actual literal translation, word to word translation of the word Dev is God. Yasyantam na vidu. Yasya means now. That now vidu, sura, asura means those very elevated personalities, those elevated human beings. Yeah. Sura means demigods. Asura means rakshas or the demons. Yasyantam na vidu, sura, asura gana. Gana means human beings. Devaya tasmai namaha. So all these entities in the entire material manifestation, they are also meditating, they are also worshipping again that one person, that God. Sutta Goswami says, that particular God, I offer my respectful obeisances. So if Sutta Goswami is saying all the categories he brings in single prayer, and who is that person? And then he says that God is nothing but Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the we can now relate to that prayer with this. Those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, all pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth by controlling various senses. So, all the yogis are trying to control the senses and they want to achieve different mystic powers, some siddhi. Where it is coming from? Again, the Supreme Lord Krishna Himself. Being equally disposed to everyone. They want to Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavyastini. Sunicheva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Being equally disposed to everyone. That's what this verse we can refer to. That's in the beginning we were talking about the same. In the whole 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we can connect to all different verses from different chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And then we can relate to the all 20 verses from the 12th chapter. Such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So it's like let's think about an example of a physicist. If the person is working on energy studies, you will find a different manifestations of the energy, different forms of the energy, with static energy, kinetic energy, and that is the basic, and then how that energy manifests, how it is related to us, light and heat and everything. Finally, there has to be an ultimate, if the energy can be converted into one form to another, that means the common sense, the energy scientist or the physicist should think that there should be a source of energy, the creator of the energy, who has made this something magical. Who has made this something magical, that yes, there is one single source of energy and which can be transformed from one form to another, which is quite a fascinating idea, that somebody has made this kind of magical entity called energy. So that if the physicist will come to the same, to all the physicists or all the energy scientists will come to the same conclusion, that I am studying electrical energy, somebody will say I am studying thermodynamics, somebody will say I am studying quantum mechanics, somebody will say I am studying classical mechanics, and so on and so forth. But the single source of energy, and people are studying different manifestations, they will come to the same conclusion, that it's the same source of energy which we are basically studying in the different forms. And is the same manner, if a person is trying to achieve this all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, immovable, and another person has established a relationship, concluding factor is who has a more sweeter relationship, who because it is a legitimate desire of any jivatma to seek pleasure. And if the pleasure is available with a devotee more than any impersonalist, then who is in a better situation? And the conclusion is yes, the impersonalist will say, after doing so much of activities, if still the devotee is in a better situation, why not I should follow the path of the devotional service? And that's the conclusion Lord is coming at the end of the 12th chapter. So it is 8:40. We have another 20 minutes. Um, let's discuss little bit about the purport, what Prabhupada is giving here, because this is quite important aspect of 12th chapter, that in our what Prabhupada is giving here. This particular double quote here is also related to one important verse. Who can relate to that verse from the today's devotee group? Which verse Prabhupada is referring to? The verse is Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavanman Prapadyate Vasudevah Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. So after many births, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavanman Prapadyate, one gains the knowledge. Jnan means knowledge. Vasudevah Sarvam iti. Iti means the ultimate goal is Vasudev, the Supreme Lord Himself. Samahatma Sudurlabha. That person, after doing so much of research, so much of activities, if this is the conclusion, how fortunate we are that all the homework, all the groundwork is all we don't have to do, and Prabhupada is feeding us the best. It's like a small child is expecting a food, and that time a mother is giving the most nutritious, most delicious, and the perfect food with the perfect quantity to that child. How wonderful it is. And that's what Prabhupada is giving us here. That yes, why do all the juggling, word jugglery? Why go for different paths of the spiritual realization? Just worship the Supreme Lord. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. When a person comes to full knowledge after many births, he surrenders unto the Supreme Lord Krishna. If one approaches the Godhead by the method mentioned in this verse, he has to control senses, render service to everyone, and engage in the welfare of all beings. So what Prabhupada is telling here is, if we surrender it unto the Supreme Lord, our vision will change. And the most important point Prabhupada is trying to tell us here is, the yogis are trying to do something, they are trying to achieve by their own efforts. They think that I can follow this practice, and then it's like academics. I can study this much, and then I will get this many marks, and then I will get the degree. So that's the approach. It's a very Srila Shivaram Maharaj says that it's an inductive approach, that knowledge by perception. So that's the but here when we start worshipping the Lord, he will be merciful to us, and he will show us the path. What is better, being a car mechanic by dismantling the brand new car, learning everything right from the composition of the metal, composition of the engine, composition of the mechanism of the car, everything else, or go to the car manufacturer, get trained, and be ready and be the car mechanic, which is a better approach. The second one, right? Going to the car manufacturer. So this is what, when Lord is the manufacturer, he knows everything, and when we connect to him, it is lot better approach than trying to do something on our own. And yogis are of this first category. So in order to perceive the super soul within the individual soul, one has to cease the sensual activities of seeing, hearing, tasting, working, etc. And then one comes to understand that Supreme Soul is present everywhere. Realizing this, one envies no living entity. He sees no difference between man and animal because he sees soul only. Which verse is that? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavyasti. One of the verses. There are many we can relate to this. Not the outer covering. And even for this, Manushyanam Sahasreshu, that's another verse we can relate to this. But for a common man, this method of impersonal realization is very difficult. Yeah. I have a very good friend who is following that impersonal path. And he writes loads of articles. He writes, he's very, very nice person, very intellectual. He has very studious, he is. But because of the praise and people saying, oh, you're so wonderful, he enjoys that kind of knowledge sharing and discussion and all that. That's where the things will get bit complicated, because he is thinking that the knowledge is giving him that kind of honor, respect and all that. Where is the relationship? The source of knowledge, he is just repeating that source from the source of knowledge, and then but losing the relationship there. And that's what the difficult part is in terms of impersonal realization. So this is where today's discussion we had. Yeah, one something I just remembered. I was talking to my daughter. She's a medicine student for the last year, a medicine student, and she was telling me that many top universities in the world are also coming to the conclusion that eating ghee or ghrut is recommended by many scientists nowadays. So, and she said that's what our Shastra is telling us, that eating ghee is the best, the ghrut. So I was telling her that your university or other prestigious universities, they are coming to the same conclusion after so much of research. And earlier they said no, this butter and ghee is not good, and now they are coming to different conclusion. Why not accept the word given by the manufacturer, given by the Lord as it is, and just surrender? Yes, I accept that ghee is good, and that's it. So this is what Prabhupada has been telling us. And coming to the point of distributing this knowledge, is we have to follow the same approach, that if we give these examples of eating ghee is good, coconut oil is very good, yes, sesame oil is very good, for what season which oil is good for our body, everything is given in Ayurveda. Why not follow those basics rather than doing so much of research, exploiting the earth's resources, misleading people, and coming to the conclusion that is also with lot of imperfections. How to extract that oil is also not clear. So many complications. So that's what I think. That's where we need to focus on distributing this supreme knowledge to the world as it is. And that's what Prabhupada's approach is. We are distributing books just by studying these books properly and copying what our acharyas have said as it is. When we study what our Acharya's commentary is, example is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the little bit of distinction between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Whereas in Gita Bhushan by Srila Baladev Vidya Bhushan, he says there is no difference. So does it mean Acharyas differ in their commentary? No, they don't. But the approach of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he is a supreme Bhakti Yogi. He is one of the topmost Bhakti Yogi. So he is coming to the point of Karma Mimamsa or Karma has to be connected to Bhakti, and that's where his point is. Yeah. Whereas Baladev Vidyabhushan, his student, is saying that there is no difference. He is not differing from his guru, but he is telling that our starting of our mood, the beginning should only start with bhakti. We should not think even about karma. So that's what the difference is. And Prabhupada has fortunately, we are fortunate enough that Prabhupada has given very simplified commentary, the extract from all our acharyas who were beyond imagination genius scholars. So our job is to just distribute these books, distribute this knowledge, share with people, because as we talked about the example of eating ghee or coconut oil, which is good for health, so many people are confused nowadays. So our knowledge is the supreme, ultimate, eternal knowledge, not the incomplete and changing knowledge of related to the sense perception, which is called pratyaksha jnana. So that is why we should be following the knowledge from our Vedic literature, from our Upanishad and Vedic studies. So that's what the conclusion is. And that's the reason we should actively take part in book distribution. If not possible for some reasons for some day, then at least we should study and make sure that whenever our thought process is clearly focused on what we speak or discuss with others, so that we are talking according to our parampara, according to our lineage, and according to what our acharyas, our guru parampara is telling us. So that's what the emphasis for the book distribution is. Today is Gita Jayanti, very important verse we discussed today, and the prayer. We came to the point of what is important and how impersonalist conception is not complete. Today is also Mokshada Ekadashi, which is if so if we follow the footsteps and our sampradaya properly, the result is Mokshada Ekadashi, Mokshada, which gives us the liberation from the miseries of this material world. And we don't have to discuss anything about the miseries from this material world. Enough of those in last 2-3 years. We have been going through the turmoils and the problems. And some people say 2023 there is going to be a lot of turbulence there. So our focus should be our scriptures, and when there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord, He will show us the path, even though there will be some bumpy ride in coming weeks, months and years. So that's where we will stop. We have around 5 minutes. If there are any questions or comments or any additions, please unmute yourself and let me know. If there are comments, let me check. What are the comments? Yeah, nice recitations. Thank you. So, if there are no questions, then we will stop here. And thank you, everybody. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam
Pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
namo
Namaha.
namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very
Thank you,
nice
Prabhuji.
class.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class.